somehow I feel all this talk is quite contrived, and that there is a construction of a problem that is not there. There is no problem with painting or defining painting, and I just had this feeling after Olav had given his talk that he cleared the air in a very nice way, and suddenly afterwards it started to fog up again. So if I should place a question, it would be, is there really any problem?
It kind of has been beautifully answered in something Marie Slaattelid said this afternoon. She said, I've got it here, where is it? Paintings are stumbling blocks in a discourse. I thought that's a great way to describe it. Stumbling blocks in a discourse. It was like, I remember once somebody asking the cellist Yo-Yo Ma about his time studying in Harvard, and he had one of his professors sitting in the audience, and he said to this professor from the podium, he said, "You were the boulder in my road, and what I had to do all the time I was a student was try and get beyond you." And I think that's sort of the same thing. When a painting arrives in a space, irrespective of what it looks like or how it's made, if it actually creates a stumbling moment in a discourse, whether that discourse is about a current theory or even a past theory, it actually allows us to stop and think.
I don't think painting has ever been autonomous, really. I mean, apart from anything else, I mean, back to the question earlier about conceptualism. Oh, bad conceptualism, get thee to Satan. You know, I mean, paintings were full of iconography and symbolism and ideas, and you could be burned at the stake if you expressed the wrong idea. So there's always been more going on than merely the visual, because everything's bloody visual anyway, or visible. I guess there's a difference between the visible and the visual, but maybe I don't know what the future models are, because we're not there yet. As I said to someone earlier, I've seen the future and I'm not going.
Adrian, you said something which I wrote down. You said, you can feel it if you look. And I think in that one short sentence, there are two, almost for me, primordial things about painting. It's about looking and it's about feeling. And these two things, as much as we've tried, or our theory has tried to erode out of painting, simply won't go anywhere but remain in the field of painting.
You can think of painting as something that you can hang on the wall, or you can also think of painting as a pigment that's on canvas, and you can see it in a different way, and you can say, well, if, let's say, like, worst case scenario, what do, you know, the war is here, whatever, and then you can, like, take apart the painting and wear it just to stay warm or something. I mean, in the end, it has all this historical value, but it's also pigment attached to canvas.
There's always been this fetishization, in a way, of different materials. And amongst some painters, there's always been this sort of search for the lost techniques of the old masters. That goes on, but it won't help you make a better painting. In fact, the more people are into the techniques and the bloody marl stick and the, oh, I've got to use real rabbit skin glue size here, and I've got to do, the more, it's a bit like a lot of printmakers who get so into the technology of the medium, it's actually a masquerade for the fact that they're no bloody good as artists.
I didn't really so much want to be a painter because it didn't really exist around me in South Africa, but I, as a child, always drew. I never used to say I'm a painter. I always said I'm a student. But then at a certain stage, you know, you've exhibited and you start to teach, and so I thought, okay, maybe I'm a bad painter, but I'll admit, okay, that's what I seem to do.
And I really don't know whether art ever really sets out to make statements. I mean, the reverse might be true, that statements that kind of circulate in the world can trigger a piece of work. You know, it works the other way perhaps. And often it's what might be termed as political might be just an extreme experience in the world.
Aboriginal art in general is everything is inherently political. All of those artworks that I showed you that come from remote communities, they're like land titles. They're claims of ownership over where people live and where they've lived for generations. And even though something might look abstract, it's actually a political document as much as it's a painting, which is why it's so compelling, because it may not be obvious at first looking at it, but once you get a sense of where it's come from, you realise that it's about actually people's lives and people's communities as much as it's about making a picture.
One of the first things I do not want to do is to talk about art for art's sake, art for the sake of politics, art for the sake of itself. I think that for me, my experience of all the discussions I've been through with painting is that that really disrupts what we essentially want to talk about, which is this medium and the generous opportunities it gives us to think about issues of identity, nationality, politics, culturality, whatever we want to call it. And so therefore to accept this new broad base of what painting has achieved, rather than the divisions within painting, we actually start off on a new platform that we can just talk about the medium.
It isn't so that I love to spend time in my studio, that I love this mess, this stuff on my fingers, but it is the hope that I will succeed with a painting. And in order to succeed, I must hold on to it. And so the time that's needed, I accept the time that is needed.
There's an internal desire, I think, even probably generationally speaking, to reach out to something that is completely dissolved of any kind of structure. So I think there might be a return. I don't know if that's a broadly thing, but I think personally within myself, I see myself yearning for that kind of space.
I mean, I have some fantastic brushes made from a very old man. And you can never find an old man ever again that makes such wonderful brushes. So I bought 8 brushes. And this is very, very big. And they are so wonderful that I cannot paint for them.
It does seem that people still look at a painting, even though they say, you know, it's all over or they don't care, look at it differently than because that image of Osama has been over and over in all the newspapers, but somehow when it seems to become more personalized in a strange way, and that relates to your stumbling block thing, that people do get more upset when they see it as a painting, and they do give it different attention somehow still.
I had a feeling that I could place many of my paintings in different cultures. Yes. Like, yeah. And that is maybe easier to registrate in my graphic works, where this kind of hand just wandering, huh? And sometimes I feel like, well, it could be in your museum.
Whether it's a very early prehistoric object that triggers this, or a very modern work of art that triggers it, really is, for me, doesn't make any difference. What is important about it is the fact that it has the capacity to trigger, that it has the capacity to actually make you respond as a human being. And that's why I say painting is existential, and it actually is about you recognizing your humanity. The fact that you have these senses says to you, I am alive, I am a human being.